so ye zhong la zhang zhong ban dong da ne jiang zhong da ge chu ju ren ye bian song nan ye long la bin je san ye che nan zo ye zhong nam la zhang zhong ban dong da ne jiang zhong je da ge chu ju ren ye bian song nan ye long la bin do ba la zhong che da zo ye zhong nan la zhang zhong ban dong da ne jiang zhong je da ge chu ju ren ye bian song nan ye long la bin je san ye lo I just want to remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and generate our mind into the altruistic motivation or bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta or altruistic motivation, that we should all participate in this discourse on mind training like the rays of the sun. I'm going to read a couple of pages from this mind training text from page 85 to give you the blessing of Lung, oral lineage oral transmission, followed by explanation.
常写的小微是那个。我姓那人年纪这些把头嘛这是的，这个那个过小没怎么样的送老中的是我呢，上海菜那个老百姓些送的，我这等一位学生把那个咋的，他这小个把让给我搞去，这个到毛鱼了，去嘛，人家别拿。因这样的就是学的这学没说这英国那边老这个老这面的就把就这面的越了说带我说送老人家会大呢，你说他是不嘛的一些送的，就那个那些送的上就基本上。说到过去年报了到那个对到现在恐怕这些什么不联系了一些那个你报这些了的，这边多这么些不我手机就用不就不那个这些现在不各都全部，另外个这不这些这不这些就到我们这个给这些不小区什么也老这些边那就这个恐怕这边。那这是我影响到那中国一些说这个，大致要大致杨梅菜、长北杨梅，大致这杨梅菜，但浙江没多些的没有比为3年如果都说明年把那个就熊这熊样。那看是这个东上街，兄弟得了我妈让来你让这你300万只为把我或者么着，可是我这看他把大了看谁人，看他大了看谁人现在那我是吧，天气这个多然后他们上就跟你们就是接应他们呢。说这人准备到时到我是，他的这是在他讲这群众的电视的，到不我那的我把电视，但我把空白到谁多？
那是。
空白到谁的开始呢？你就那么开始，我上学也是上班也老板就是现在他。西个那边就弄这个的，就弄几噻的，那过场的老板小爷吧，老板爷吧，这是了，老板爷吧，那这是这老板用业绩是那个是那物业绩就要高些，我记得3个月都是好像，小爷吧那个。老板有也把的这边我底下，甚至这个那个也把的就要干的，那个原本农照顾的，西汉了嘛的，只要农这些的，知道那个是农业你都知道3个月都是有收入啊，和提的，老板原本那原本的下是把讲的下，那个原本农种给是当然的呢，破手是这里的，上面开始这个时候，那个原本农跑的这种。那说给他这个是把新疆东那些，最高的这里新疆现在地图他们都是最厉害，都是好东西，第个呢10多些或者些是不是？瞧我啥？这个是不些呢？普遍门个围桥呢，围桥完门的是，这个呢我这还没有印象是。就是知道不好意思，这个当我啥我忙不学的，他这上路都的，现在上不这时候，这个上路现在要么时候的。
那是。Geshe read up to page 88, and we are back to page 86. Right on the top, you find it stated the power of familiarity. Remember last week, we talked about how we can practice what is called the 5 powers at the time of death and dying. And out of the 5, we have the last one that needs to be explained, which is combat of the power of familiarity or habituation, if you will. And as Geshe explained, that at the time of the death, we lie down on the right side of our body, with face in the right palm of our in the palm of our right hand, and with the ring finger we block the right nostril, and our left hand is kept extended on the left side of the body. And this style of lying down is called lying in the lion's position. As we said, lion is the king of jungle, and that's the posture of majesty, so we try to emulate that lion's posture as we lie down on our deathbed. So then what we should be thinking about is, as we breathe in and out, when we breathe in, we visualize taking upon ourselves unwanted suffering and problems of other sentient beings. When we breathe out or exhale, we imagine that we are sending out all the virtues and the goodness that sentient beings are seeking. So it is in that manner, in that mindset of Tonglen practice, the practice of taking and giving, we should die in that positive state of mind. And so using or practicing the 5 powers at the time of death is regarded as extremely powerful practice. As great Kadamba Geshe Chegaba has said, right on page 86, that there are many, what are called very powerful power practice or transference of consciousness instructions in how to do that, where it is claimed that this kind of a power practice is really profound and very impactful, and that one is impactful or effective. But according to Geshe Chegaba, that if we really integrate these 5 powers at the time of death and dying, this really is, as a matter of fact, if not more powerful than any other, reputed power instructions. This is extremely profound and effective practice, equivalent to or more than, practicing power, transference of consciousness at death and dying.
And Pongyo Seva Shaju Dangzi Bes, then Dangzi Be, then Dangzi da Nimu Kazak on him. Dangzi Sudu come and the Mambe Sudu Shiaga and the Dangzi Badeva Shiaji, the way Dangzi Yajia is a Dangzi Shura. Dangzi Mama Mark Chaya didn't dig your Shura. Dangzi Yajia, she doesn't dig your what it. But this is the said the so Dangzi said, Chitan Sanji Suga Dangzi Dias, Tana Song Yenza, and so the Shaju Simson Yang Xian, in Dangzi that you the Shong rejected, Shong Shi and the Dangzi, and Shong Shi don't dig your race. Shong Shi don't dig your Morris, that is it.
We are in the middle of page 86, where the big caption reads, the measure of having trained the mind. So in other words, the next kind of logical question, as we talked about, training our mind, that includes practicing the 5 paths at the time of death and dying. Now we obviously would like to know, how do I know that my mind is, is trained, right? What's the criteria by which I can say that my mind is trained or is getting trained? And from the 7-point mind training root text, we have one line which reads, integrate all the teachings into one thought, literally translating here. So what does that mean? As Geshe explained, that all the teachings given by Shakyamuni Buddha are meant for us to be able to counteract our self-grasping and self-cherishing attitude. Okay? So when we do any of our practice, we have to examine whether our practice is really counteracting our self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping or not. In other words, whatever practice we are doing, including cultivating this awakened mind or bodhicitta, is it counteracting and minimizing and decreasing our self-cherishing attitude and other forms of afflictive emotions? And if it is, that means we are on the right track and our mind is getting trained. On the other hand, whatever practice we do, we find that it is really not counteracting our afflictive emotions, including self-grasping and self-cherishing attitude. As a matter of fact, our practice is enhancing somehow or kind of increasing these afflictive emotions. So then that means we are not doing the practice right. Yeah? And so the bottom line is that whatever aspect of Buddha's teaching or discourse that we practice, we should check against our own mind and see if our self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping are being affected, are they being decreased, or are they being kind of downgraded, if you will. And if they are, then we are practicing well, and that is how we know that our mind training is working. On the other hand, whatever we practice, if it's not affecting our afflictive emotions, including self-grasping, self-cherishing attitude, as a matter of fact, they are kind of increasing, getting enhanced, then that means we are not doing our practice properly.
我就是可是当时虽然是那当时也恐怖主要，但我都那就工作都在那拉出来的那么岁的时候，就说老车呀，是吧？第一是吧？到所以这个什么当的当时的呀，切主要一模片的这个，如果那那个这个么的是，但当时慢半边是的，当时穷中啊是的那这个的是，现在到。去把我那上头养的我，学养的我这都们都大家就的，第一大过的是，当时嘛，穷人是这样，他给钱都说，他那两面这么学习的开始钱，第一个当时没有那个这个人都那这个的是，当时也也是的，这个课上学的是，现在当时现在这些的是，这些他那个学把养的我这当学养的我这都们都比。可是他我说，就是上周大概这个提的是吧？
So in other words, that as we engage in our Dharma practice or spiritual practice, of course here in this context we are, discussing cultivating bodhicitta or the awakened state of mind. So as we do our practice, we should examine or check out, within our own mind, is my practice helping me to counteract, to overcome self-cherishing attitude, counteract my self-grasping and other afflictive emotions. And if we find that's what is happening, then that means we are practicing properly. And so that is a pure practice of Dharma. And so we are, in a sense, a sincere Dharma practitioner. On the other hand, whatever we are practicing, if it is boosting our self-cherishing attitude, self-grasping attitude, and other afflictive emotions, then then that means we have misappropriated the Dharma practice, and we are not practicing Dharma purely, and we are not really, in a sense, a pure Dharma practitioner. So we have to really find it out, against our own state of mind, whether the practice is helping us to, belittle, to look down upon self-grasping, self-judging attitude, and downgrade them, and kind of control them, and subdue them, get rid of them, then we are in the right direction. On the other hand, if our practice is augmenting, it is enhancing, self-grasping and so forth, that means we have misappropriated the Dhamma practice, and we are not doing it properly.
What is Shasha? Tita Tabe, say wrong, Marishi Koshito Manis, that to Tashi, and Yakore around the materials and Jedurova. That Dujade Jedin, that Chushiva Kushimoto, Zan, Yakore Mesa, so pick the Karsa. Any Lenindia to Simplishia, so cheap as it is a cheese, it is so big Kasa. Some do of Shane, that gets shame and do some as your the team. She told me, Karsa, Bamboni, so she so they say. Oh, that get Bambonis, that Bambos is so and it's sure the only red the tire, the Bambo the knee you see what.
Yes.
She saw the Shenje Tigulish. Gula Shu Shung do took in Jam Bursi, Song to Sewateans, Bambo Jing this, one year, Timmy, Neka Kundus, Rangula Tagby, Rang Milo, Rang Milum Mungo, Mio, Mijiwashi, doing no say. That Bambo in the Karsana, so the Kasa, Shedag, any. That Geshe and that Shiba say, no, the Koran be Shibuya water took you Jabo, Penyan Sabo, Shibures, Laya, Shedata, the Tapango Shiksha.
No.
The Tipango de Tenes Guy was your. That was go Kaji Sushi, they can make it no lot of Haka.
No.
The Pango Zoo, the guy is the Sosa issue, the Sosa God Magiza. When your team may be nigger could run you like that, but say, rather. Mio, Mijo, go doing so. That's so done. That one is a lady, so Loma de Shibu, so long got the budget. That getting the Jady Shah, Sunny, and when there's a show, Pongo Yashit is what I
No. So as Geshe explained, that it's very important for us to find out how we are practicing, including cultivating awakened mind, bodhicitta, to see if it is really affecting our self-judging attitude, self-grasping attitude, and other afflictive emotions, and whether they are, decreasing or not, or they are being subdued or not. And if that's happening, and then we are practicing properly, and we are a sincere and pure Dharma practitioner. On the other hand, if our practice is not affecting our afflicted emotions, but rather they are being augmented, enhanced, they are boosted up like anything, that means we have not been practicing Dharma properly, and we are not sincere in our practice. And so as we do that self-examination, so we can find out, so to speak, the answers to our questions. How are we practicing, and are we a Dharma practitioner or not? In the 7-point mind training text, there's another statement which reads, primary importance should be given to the two witnesses. So what that really means is, how am I doing in my practice, right? The way to find out is two. So one is, what are other people saying about me and my practice? For example, if people are talking about, wow, this Geshe is so generous and kind, and is really sincere in his practice and all of those things. So other statement could be testimonial to, whether you are practicing properly or not, or whether you are a Dharma practitioner or not, isn't it? And that is important. But we can't rely too much on others' testimonials about your own practice or our own practice. The thing is that a great hypocrite can really play the role of being the most sincere practitioner or bodhisattva of some kind, and other people may just get goofed, and they're saying all kinds of wonderful things about the person, but in reality the person is not a true Dharma practitioner, and what he is practicing is not true Dharma, isn't it? So the next witness is being witness. You are a best witness to what you are doing, isn't it? What is in our mind, that is not a secret, cannot be secret from ourselves, right? It cannot be hidden from ourselves. And so the best witness is, am I being sincere in cultivating bodhicitta or doing my practice, isn't it? Is my practice really affecting my self-chasing attitude, self-grasping, and other afflicting emotions or not? Or is my practicing is really kind of augmenting all of these afflicting emotions? So we can figure it out for ourselves. And so being honest and sincere to ourselves. And if we are sincere in our self-assessment, that brings us a lot of confidence, and satisfaction in how we do. And if we are deceiving ourselves, even if other people think we are great, but in reality we are not, because we know that we are not being sincere in how we practice. Our practice is not affecting afflicting emotions. So then that is really very, how should I say, self-disappointing, isn't it? It's a very self-cheating and self-deception. So we do not want to get involved in self-deception and self-cheating.
Jiden che mundu she las lo jambe se dodo tribe che joma tomane ide ba yudi je se song de se gombe she goro nywa she ne dunge da changme so yenge chi shong yo tole go ne le nyam so lambe同学呢是刚过让别让吧，毛多一没到所以见的门多啊，门多啊是空特别在，你不同没谁去吧意思，多呢老少个别在门对为中心学院在，也没得运作呢空中给他用吧，的常写的。小别些呢，我是拿着年纪，这个些别是土么的设的，这个过去没得娘的送，老长辈我上月菜呢，老外一些送的是，这这人家的可是，这点小门的是的到呢。다 거기 깽에 받는데디 그게 아니 카도 제가 곰데 뭐 세미임베 카도를 탑트갈 에네 깽에 받는 테서나 딜람사도 에네 깽에 람 조토나 에네 칸 로좀 뭐 세리서 가 영자 탐나 좀바 있어다 로조 치게만 가서 돈도 코란 치카이 디레도 디디나 야디면도 샴도 요구이나 그지 셈영데 사사시베 카들라데 작으러 사사 뭐 영데 카들 와 깽에 쇼서 람사 깽에 람디 유서나 에네 로종으로 시워라 이 로종마 또만네 이데 바히 긴데 텐스 시다다 근데 깽에 가데쇼나 디가 영도 면도 하시데 람디 주토도 잔다 깽 상바셔나 데라제 제다 이데 바히 긴데 거디나 비게 주바냐를 래말이야 누시도 미디움 쇼가 잔지没到这样样，我的是我说，一定不是有的东西。先生的我们去用叫呢，另外的，那场面的，另外些，那场面些都差不多年吧，是不是？大概是，比较快这些慢一些些就没个那样就了。说像那演员不这修养，有么就，过年中年，老中老这娘是南北是同兄娘，刚过上不毛多吧，也没都是钱，也都没着啊是，没着困别菜，困特别菜，年不错， Nimbu Tome said Shibains. Donna Lojon Gombe, say Mundo, Joseph, Yimid de Yutoni. What him da? And don't do it. Can't Lojon don't say the Danda, and a to country, Chishun country, Shuna, and a gang de love the Domo over the gang the show, love to Jotam, the gang on the middle. Today, Shuna, this was that. In a Tome said she by said she was the Garda, Lord Jobbit said he that.
No.
So, but don't know Lojo go say, Mindo, Jones, say, ye made the Yuzoni, Condu, say, get a jumba. This sunshade, they say. This was that. Today, some emotional must say, yeah, there's the corridor down, there's the go to get that junction, son of this order. This sunshade, that the Lojo single, don't share of the terrace or that Yangalam Joto Yabara.
No.
What you say?
No.
Sunshade show way, Gaji Nari, Yeji, Yeshiba, Tuma, said this. Ticules, Gosha, Benham songs. What him Gashi Gaden, Yeji, Gishi, but Tuma, said this. That Gishi, Yodu, that some Toma in the Yoran, that Loyal, the Gajeta.
No.
Or Tindesuna, Shenda go there, the Shuna. Karsa, this is sure the Yagoya Marasurva.
No.
What do you mean? Good, the songs, Lord Job, say morning, Shartse, Lower easy. So that, what do you mean? At the getting Gajan Taraja. Nimbu said she about Donos, Lord Job says, Citizen Kaje, did the Wakarsa. Control that is on the middle to be Kadu in a lot. King of Kajan sang Kadishun, the Lojon did was share, and Yang method the middle was she didn't draw to has Lord John Waynes. That it is she has gained the Condosai and the Sassu melody, never the Lanza Condosai, and the Gauss Lanza the she's done, and the Copento Omarava. Today, young museum up. Cody in the chick what of Diego.
We're on page 87. Right on the top, we have a line quoted from the 7-point mind training root text, and I quote, "Constantly cultivate only a joyful mind." And as Geshe explained, here we are talking about the measure of having trained our mind through the development of bodhicitta or awakened state of mind. And so what is stated there is this, that under all circumstances, if we don't lose peace of our mind, but rather that we're able to transform any adverse condition into conducive condition for enhancing our practice, then we could remain in our joyful state of mind. Yeah. Of course, when we are in good circumstances and when we are mindfully practicing, we know, relatively speaking, it's easier to stay in a positive state of mind and to maintain our practice. But when our mind is really trained well, even when we are not that mindful, and should any like a slight condition provokes our mind, we could still transform that negative condition into positive condition. If that's happening, then we know that our mind is really getting trained well, isn't it? Because we are not being influenced by the negative circumstances and conditions. Yeah. So as Geshe explained, that through the development of bodhicitta awakened mind, we find ourselves in all kinds of circumstances, especially difficult ones, where we have a lot of difficulties and troubles and suffering in our life. Or it could also be like, say, we get a lot of bad raps, bad reputation. Everybody is just bad mouthing us like anything, like a hell. So under such circumstances, if we could remain undisturbed, and we really appreciate these situations that while I have a great opportunity here to do my mind training practice here, and then we take those adverse circumstances into conducive, favorable conditions to maintain and enhance our bodhicitta practice, awakened mind practice. That means our mind is really getting trained well, isn't it? Because we don't let our mind being influenced by negative conditions, and then we lose our temper, we get angry, or that we get easily attached to something. Because there could be external conditions that could provoke anger, attachment, other afflictive emotions in our mind, but because of training of our mind, that we're able to easily transform them into conducive factors to augment our practice. When we feel that, when we experience that, so that is the measure of having trained our mind. And so as great Kadamba Geshe Shabu said, that for a practitioner, if somebody says that, my spiritual friend, is a psycho, or is like a short-tempered person, so that is really not a compliment. That is what we call a great criticism of who he is. It's very unfortunate as a spiritual practitioner. So we should not be and cannot be that. And so we should be able to, keep peace of mind and remain unperturbed or undisturbed. So the bottom line is this, as Geshe explained, that under all circumstances, especially difficult ones, if we don't let, any condition to provoke anger, hostility in us, attachment, other afflictive emotions, rather we take these conditions to, train our mind in developing bodhicitta, effectively. That means, that is the measure of having trained our mind well. We are still on page 87, more towards the end. There is in our statement from the 7-point mind training text, and I quote, "The measure of a trained mind is that it has turned away," unquote. So as Geshe explained, that while we engage in this Lojong practice, mind training or the thought transformation practice, from the beginning, so to speak, to the end, the beginning involves, as we said, preparations or preliminary practices, ngondo, and all the way up to the development of ultimate bodhicitta. Okay? And so when we are doing our practice, if we get this kind of sense and satisfaction that I have been doing well, that I have made my fully endowed precious human life meaningful, I haven't wasted my precious life and opportunities, if you truly feel that as you go through all these different stages of practice, so that gives you the satisfaction that your mind has been really trained well, isn't it? And as Geshe explained, in this mind training text, in terms of presentation, order of presentation, ultimate bodhicitta or ultimate mind of enlightenment is presented first, and followed by the presentation of conventional bodhicitta or conventional mind of enlightenment. But in the Gelugpa tradition of explaining this, we would reverse the order, and usually we would explain cultivating the conventional mind of enlightenment first and leading to the cultivation of the ultimate mind of enlightenment. So we refer to that statement from the 7-point mind training text, how it says is, from the preliminary practices up to the ultimate mind of enlightenment. So that should be the ending, isn't it? As you do your practice, you feel that, well, I have really made my life very meaningful, isn't it? I haven't wasted my precious human life with opportunities. That means, you have trained your mind well. At the bottom of page 87, a caption reads, Signs of a Trained Mind. We have a statement from 7-point mind training text which reads, there are 5 great marks of a trained mind. And the Geshe explanation pertains to that. In other words, there are 5 great indicative marks or signs, marks that indicate that you have, as a matter of fact, trained your mind very well in the awakened mind or bodhicitta. So the first indicative mark or a sign is called, you have become a great, how should I say, a great, here is translated as hero. Somebody means, you have become a very in some way like a very courageous mind, literally translating. What this means, as Geshe says, is that you see that cultivating awakened mind or bodhicitta is the essence of all Buddha's teachings or discourse, and you most sincerely cultivate and embody it in you. So with this embodiment of bodhicitta in you, you have become a great, a great sattva, someone with a great mind, if you will, a great hero in the sense that you have a great mind. You're a great mind person. Okay. The second indicative sign is that because of your care about awakened mind and care about all other sentient beings, it really permeates your actions, and you are even meticulous in observing any minor karmic law of karmic action and results. You don't undermine them, and you really have to acknowledge them. So in that way, you have become what is called a great disciplinarian. In other words, a holder of a great discipline, I should say. Great disciplinarian sounds like you are in a monastery or something. Dorjee means in the monasteries, of course, they have a great disciplinarian who is in charge of the disciplines. But here, what it means that you have become a great upholder, and the one who holds the ethics because of bodhicitta development, that you really care about even minor karmic actions as something important, and you don't violate the karmic laws. The third one is that you have dedicated yourself completely into cultivating bodhicitta, in the sense that you don't allow for any afflictive emotions to arise in your mind. You counteract them. And you may face a lot of challenges and difficulties doing that, but you withstand your challenges, difficulty. In that way, you have become a great ascetic, or you have become a person of great patience. This amazing endurance, right, to be able to withstand all these difficulties. Number 4 indicative sign is that because of bodhicitta development, that your actions of body, speech, and mind are all pretty much virtuous. Elsewhere there's a mention of 10 virtues, and your mind is not separate from all of those 10 virtues. So therefore, we can say you are a Kechor means you are a person of great virtue, and then the last one is that you completely dedicate yourselves into cultivating awakened mind of bodhicitta, and do all the practices, including the auxiliary practices, such as the preliminary practices of contemplating how precious fully endowed human form is, how greatly meaningful it is, how rare and difficult to find this kind of life over and again, and so forth. So you really contemplate and think about all of these practices to cultivate awakened mind or bodhicitta. So it is in that sense, because you are a great practitioner of bodhicitta, you are a great yogi, here. So those are the 5 signs or great indicative signs that could also inform you that your mind training has been done well.
대가는 다자면 대자들이 요말에 딱 그런 조고신의 유연이가 요 디스월 다 제제 잉베세서 다 조장세 미도와 해디세 어디 가자갈이야 대가는 맨다자야 좀 사일 카다래야 좀 다 용이 들려야 그 루버스 쪼여도 어디스월이 일롱도 뭐지 세대 묘내서 조고서 베니 로브 제쇼냐 카스 차가서 디데 자 남도 메와 에디 소소 디스월다 소소 나 예바 제면은 아니 코칭치도서 많이 나야시여서 비 카모보 당시에는 근데 들려야다 이 소소리 비 나제 동생 딘데기야 남도 메와 이 삼도 가랬던 것은 상시 좀 되네 뭐봐서 상제도 다도야 엔데 근데 군대식이 뭐 요러와 진짜 소소는 다도 수도주라가 어디서 그때 소속을 얘기해 봤어요. 리뷰 디테일 갔던 거 미리 세정도 또 소속을 갔던 거 가를 하려야 디제 참으시야다 갔다야 남도 매버시 디주 냠 남주 가서 냠도 좋아서 쳇토이나 근데 어디서 거다 가서 영자 탐는 정보이
In the middle of page 88, we have this pertinent line quoted from the 7-point mind training text, and I quote, "The trained mind retains control even when distracted," unquote. So this is real sign of, indicative sign of having trained one's mind very well in developing awakened mind or bodhicitta. Yeah. And as Geshe explained with an example here, that someone who has become an excellent horse rider, right? And even when he or she is riding a horse, doesn't need to pay attention to everything. Maybe even able to do acrobatic things, right? As we can see, people can do acrobatics while the horse is at its speed, and they can shoot the gun at the target, they can shoot the arrow at the target, and in some sports, they can pick up the kada lying on the ground, And for any other person who hasn't been trained well, right, just being able to ride a horse properly is a challenge, isn't it? Forget about doing acrobatic thing, because the horse can throw you off anytime. So when you are very well-trained horse rider, you don't worry about being thrown off because you are so skilled, right? And you don't have to be mindful all the time because you're so trained well and you can maintain the course. So in the same way, when we have trained our mind so well in cultivating bodhicitta, even when our mind is distracted, we really don't get easily affected by negative circumstances and negative agents and conditions, isn't it? The example given is that you have been, to the extent really being very proper and doing all things well, but still a lot of people might badmouth you, that everything you're doing is wrong, and you are this and you are that, and yagadi goes on, right? And so at such time, you still remain not only you remain undisturbed, but you use that situation to be able to augment your practice, enhance your bodhicitta. And thinking this way, you know what? Well, even Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, not everybody loves the Buddha, There are tons of people who can badmouth Buddha, who is completely flawless and enlightened being, isn't it? So if Buddha is even criticized, somebody who has no fault at all, I'm still an ordinary person. However great I am in my discipline and practice, I'm still ordinary, I'm not enlightened. So therefore, whatever people are saying, criticisms upon me, this must be the result of some bad karmas I created in the past, and may those karmas be purified, and you use the opportunity to be able to, extend compassion to them and enhance your bodhicitta, isn't it? Not only you have remained undisturbed in such circumstances, but you have used the circumstances to better your practice and mind training. Yeah, when this is happening, when you're not very mindful, that means your mind is really trained well. It is just like that excellent horse rider who doesn't need to be mindful due to skill. And the same way, here you always remain in your, spiritual mindset.
lo jombo lo jona je da me tamzik na te ba ne sa da rigi di tamzik de kare te lo jo thodi me sen na chukpa di me ne chi labja di ba shi thodi zo ro di da 도도 사실 심 로제야 돼. 와 그래 갑자기 니네만 조을 소리 뭐 시에서 좋아.
나서.
내가 니스 동제 뒤에 책지 뒤에 책지 때문에 지도선로 다라 제송돼 시다 로종 탐증해야 돼. 탐증해야 돼 데려다 가지. 대단 게나 근데 니바 중아들 탐증시러 와.
나서.
달랍자서는 이네디 탐증되는 민계와 타 증산의 비게 고다시야 대대 게니까 니바스 메세요 말이야. 근데 탑시 현달라 바 다간도 되는 탑시도 로스시요 될 에네 로종기 랍자시로 와. 근데 탑시야 다 대대 게는 니바 용게 될 가지다. 가사 조목고도 가사 돈제 두번 책대만데 조목고로 따둘라. 제소데 로종 켈라다 요 많이 봐. 시다. 로조 켈라는 요 많이 직. 로조 토조 마송아시. 로조 에네 가르라 초조 많이 봐. 차다비다. 더 담보 로조 다 켈란 요사 디데레도와. 다 쇼주sem다 디데게 티버셔블 로조데다 데데 도체즈 참모데르데 다 실레 마지면서 손주시와서 제바 참모도 가요머 계속도 하더라도 네 로종 가서 켈라는 요시 다 되네 어디 로종 켈라는 요시 다 로종 토초세 가르지는 데레게 로종 토초도 무슨세야 될 토초세야 돼 오자 니 에너지야 미누세네세 특별지 라렌데 게와 시반남 시반 때메샤와 티시 니 까리까니 상데바 민지 상지지 템버 추시냐서 렘버 샤바 쉐바 오사 어데 로조 켈라는 게와서야 되고 로조 토살 상알라고 있지 샤우주서라고 있지 자가지도 로고를 세야서시나 이 로조 뜻이거다 켈라는 게와시 직시 다들이 니바데 가르세나 로조미 민타 춘체네세 유저체네 에네 산이 고아 친여들다 가지고베 메드 메마이 되서 누구 말이 산디비 공정말 지하죠 말이 시바스 부디스고 산이 고아 짠 힘이 줘봐 춘여 줘봐 아니 고네기 거기 살 집에도 줘. 에네 냠다 치와 냠다 첼원 제실소 당 다주 뒤바 군대 방식 주체부 제 라지 네 탐지 제보 종합의 시무 옆세지 발 가지 나버다비 주슬라버 샤워사 어데다 텔 로존 텔 켈란데 게와세 토시아딜 에네 저주스 로조에도 제바 도알시베 제바 참모도 예 치아딜 디 로조 켈란데 게와세 다 로조 토조세 제바 증부스기라 가서 디스거 가서 동시 메베 카사 주바 제가 스페셜 냠도시에 에네 투바꾸를 투바꾸는데 누가되게 다 투바를 걸어주고 통과했어. 애들 걸린 뒤에 뚝뚝다 투바 자 소바서 자자 근데 그 통구 말이 가가 통과했어. 어디 뒤서도 제가 좀 못하러 나래. 애들 잡아도 다 나한테 가르는 지 당지 메시 투가 걸어 파 여기 짜 인가 투하면서 걔야 저거를 어디서 쓰고 제가 찍었으니 거기 듣고도야서 거기 때들 내가 요 가까시고 그래서 또가 용도 해야 돼 토조서 그러와 어디서 갔다 얘는 로조 토조시 근데 가래
쇼리메
디르도 카조 로조 토조바 로조 초그려 뭐 이거 초그려서 되리다. 내지 변다. 그게 티바 셔볼이야 요디 티바 멤버 이념을야 민중 삼벌도 거에 등에서 좀 먹었어야 도 두시든 로조 초려래 봐서 진짜 산지 송자가 그 맹겨고 아니 로조 간가 타셔고 그랬어. 그게 로조 초려 많이 봤어요. 진짜 그랬어. 그래서 다 되게 세기들에도 가든만 토조시사시는 산이고 신이도 봐 쉬어다 아니 어디에 샤도와 산에서는 사자님보다 완전 열시도잖아 세아들이 여러 어디에 신에서는 신들이 나디에 열시아들이 말해 이러와 이 신이도 벌써 눈에들 니는 열시아도 저한테 좀서 요물 생각도 지대 용다 여러 어디에 그저 쉬었다 어쩔 것 같은 야스민도 좀 쉐딩가 또 연도도 쉐딩 인트레이션은 되게 말이지 코날 개만은 인티예요 메토드 누가 가지
맞죠. So at the bottom of page 88, the big caption reads, the irreversible commitments of mind training or lojong. And on top of page 89, we have a line from the 7-point mind training text, which reads, always train in the 3 general points, and unquote. And so as Geshe explained, if you look at the 7-point mind training, 7 points, Geshe believes this is the 6th one, and the 7th one would be labja or advices. The commitment is the 6th point, which sounds like, in terms of presentation, looks like we are towards the ending, isn't it? So we should train our mind in the 3 general points. So what are the 3 general points, if you will? As a practitioner of bodhicitta or awakened state of mind or mind training, lojong practice, thought transformation practice, number 1 is that we must not transgress our commitments. What's the difference between commitment and advice? The Tibetan word for commitment is damzik. The Sanskrit is samaya. And commitment is that once we have committed ourselves to abide by certain rules or principles, and if we violate them, transgress them, then it's going to be a fault. It's going to be negativity. Advice is like, if you don't follow the advice, it's not a fault, right? You just didn't follow the advice, because it's not a commitment. It's a suggestion more like that, do good for yourself, and if you don't do it, it's not a transgression of ethics. So anyway, we should train our mind in 3 general points as a practitioner of lojong, mind training. Number 1 is that we must not transgress or violate our commitments down to the minor details, isn't it? And we cannot say, hey, I'm a bodhisattva practitioner, so those little things like the rules of the karma, that doesn't matter. I can just kind of do them, That is, violating commitments here. We have to learn to respect, all the ethics from the minor to the majors, keep them intact. It's not like being selective, that because you are a bodhicitta practitioner doesn't mean that now you have an excuse to do some weird things, you don't. Or we don't. So that is the first general point. That having become a mind practitioner of mind training, that we keep our commitments intact. We do not transgress commitments even down to the minor commitments. Okay. The second point is tocho the minduwa, which means that as a practitioner of mind training, we must not use it like an excuse to misbehave. And to engage in some kind of wild behaviors and go wild and crazy kind of thing. Okay? And so some of the examples given here are very traditional examples, and that probably requires more explanation, is that, so one, for example, people say, okay, you should not disturb that pool of water because this pool of water, we have nagas or serpents or something, we should respect them. And then somebody goes, I'm a lojong practitioner, so it's not going to affect me, as if I have some power and realization, so I can just do the darnest thing here, And that is becoming misbehavior that is becoming a rough and wild, crazy. Yeah? Or that certain areas we feel are very sensitive because there are some invisible beings inhabiting there, and we should just not dig the soil, earth, because it's going to disturb them, and then it's going to affect everybody, community. And then if somebody says, I'm a practitioner of bodhicitta or the mind training, so therefore what affects other people is not going to affect me, so I can do it. And then you just can dig the soil, and that's again, not keeping one's practice and training properly. Or another example Geshe given is kind of a traditional story that we often hear about. It says that once in good old Tibet, a kind of a tantrika or a lay sort of a tantric practitioner of some sort, and a monk practitioner, they happen to travel together. Yeah. And somewhere they have stepped over and they have to cook something. So they made the Tibetan tukba, like a dough bowl soup. And somehow the tantric kind of the man, he thought that, if I kind of stir the tukpa with my thigh-bone trumpet, the monk is going to feel disgusted, and then I get to eat the whole thing. He has a plan. So he did that. So that's not a proper behavior, disregard for your companion, and so he did that. So then the monk is not stupid. He realized that, okay, now I think he did his trick. So what he did was, and he just kind of kicked the tukpa pot and just kind of threw everything out. He said, well, if you tantric practitioner have no sense of cleanliness and dirtiness, then I have no, grasping at self. So in that way, he misbehaved too, and he kicked the pot. So in other words, both behaviors, are what we call wild and crazy, isn't it? So as a practitioner of Lojong, mind training, we should not misbehave in that kind of wild and crazy ways. So that's the second point. The third point is that our practice should, remain complete. Don't engage in partial practice. Partial in the sense that, Buddha's teaching is meant to be practiced from, so to speak, from A to Z, isn't it? There's nothing to be left out, so, So as a practitioner of bodhicitta, awakened mind, one should know, well, that's kind of a Hinayana practice, that developing the aversion to samsara is kind of for those people, I'm now much higher level, I don't need to do that. Well, that is really being very, how should I say, selective and partial in one's practice. As a matter of fact, we need to practice that. We need to, to cultivate the three principal paths, as we say. So one must not be biased, and be partial in one's, Lojong practice or mind training practice.
This is par kayu number tabi izur labar shawo se cheda cheba ta kunju gelu ya yusu cheda dere ta ka chu chebo ne sun su kadam rawa ta kadam dige dige kadam zedi ngoto gelu kadam sarma sigdu wa cheda chu ngoto chu higa kadam sarme sur shawo sare no and saja peje ge kadam Lamar Tendua, and the Longian Kadum Lamar Tendua. No, and Yame Tavala Zaya, Kadum Lama Sungju Shudua. No, so that the Chosu Gagalia, Kadam Lama, to the Shudim, Yomar, the Gasti. So the Tilia, Kadum Lama Zaya, the Karazina, the chief Guju Tama, she was it her dancing over. No, so Giovanni Michu, the Dojo, Toba, you know, Dojo, or did they Jeva Zumbusansi over? No, so. So that what you Punana Marmation, she said, or the Jeva Tishu, Jeva Zumbusi Jomar said, he said, no. So pertaining to the second general point, which means we must not misbehave in the name of, Lojong practice or mind training practice, or don't go wild and crazy as a practitioner of Lojong. And here in the text it says, that it is wise to follow the way or the unbroken tradition coming to us from the great Indian master Atisha, sitting over there,
to the great Lama Tsongkhapa sitting over here on this side. And so great Atisha is associated with the Kadamba tradition and practice, and oftentimes Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition or Gelugpa is called the new Kadamba tradition. But Geshe says that, as a matter of fact, we can say that all the four traditions of Tibetan Buddhism are together new Kadamba tradition. That's because many great masters from all traditions have cultivated and received instructions from great Kadamba masters. Sakya Penjen, the great Sakya Pandita of the Sakya tradition, and the Longchen Ramjamba of the great Nyingma tradition, and the Gambuba of the Kagyu tradition. All of them received instructions from Kadamba masters, and they follow them. So therefore, of course, then Lama Tsongkhapa did. So all these traditions of Tibetan Buddhism follow the Kadamba tradition. So why is Kadamba tradition so praised here is that the Kadamba masters, externally, they are most well behaved. They live a very simple life. Even if they're highly realized, you don't know they're highly realized, because they never kind of give this air of like, I'm somebody. That's kind of a what is called the importance of being an earnest, as we say. They don't do that, And so they always conceal their realizations. The outside, they look like any other ordinary person on the earth. They behave very simply, very decently. And so that's the way to go. That's the tradition we have received from great Adisha down through other masters and through Lama Tsongkhapa. The metaphor we used about the Kadamba tradition greatness is that like they have this like bright candlelight or a butter lamp which is kept in a container. So you don't see it from the outside, but inside the realization is burning. It's very bright, but outside looks like any other pot. So like that. That is a great, example before us.
Gaden jivato the Gelugba about the major, so they didn't believe it all. Or this is that tell the cargo the Gadam will lose out of the Gagata Luciwari. So the Yodeka Gapa Ben with the Chuba Torjusia, machine the shade of the Mazu said, the time Pona Mamena, she said, I think I thought when the church again, the Shida, Kesha was so the Keta Yadan Pazimanga is long humor, say the one.
No, so
the Kagakalabe Hama was Shana. The Sakadam to Sungu do a Hersa. Koju, she says, Koju said the Karsa. Get us with the dead, you will say, and the day combat what the most out of the day charge you go.
No.
Today, Koji she says,
no, so
Jitaya, the top got what the Koji, what did you go?
So as Geshe explained, that commonly the Gaden or the Gelugpa tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa is often referred to as the new Kadamba tradition, and the Kadamba, the old or the original Kadamba tradition, comes from great Indian master Adisha and so forth, But as Geshe explained, it's not just the Gelugpas who have received, lineage, practices and instructions of Adisha and Kadamba tradition. Other Tibetan traditions did too. Just like we said, Sakya Pandita from Sakya, Longchen Ramjaba from Nyingma, and Gambuba from Kagyu, and all have received Kadamba lineage and traditions. And so Kadambas are very, as we said, very meticulous in observing the discipline and law of karmic action and results. And from the outside, you wouldn't know if they are highly realized or exceptional people or not, because they behave like any other ordinary person, but they are very disciplined in their actions and behaviors. They don't misbehave, they don't go wild and crazy, So that's the way to go. And oftentimes what happens is these great Kadamba practitioners, we only know their greatness at the time of death. When they died, then so many amazing, good auspicious signs and symbols show up. Then everybody like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, so and so is highly realized. So oftentimes, they are said, wow, this Kadamba masters are like a hidden yogis, They hide their practice like anything, and only we know at the end when they said goodbye, and it's often too late for us, because they're gone. And that's how it is. However great one's realization is, it's always good to keep it within and be humble. If we make our kind of practice advertised and propaganda starts, we are going to face more obstacles, If we keep our Dharma practice to oneself, concealed, then it retains very pure and intact. Nobody needs to know what we are practicing, isn't it? But if we kind of make an announcement about that, or make other people know somehow how great we are doing this, that, then it can magnetize many obstacles and problems. And we will stop there today, and we'll continue next Sunday. Are there any questions on our social media? That's all. So we have a question. The measure of trained mind is that it has turned away. Here, the conventional enlightenment is a requisite for the ultimate enlightenment. Okay, so the question is the conventional bodhicitta prerequisite for cultivating the ultimate bodhicitta? That is the question. Okay, and I'll ask Geshe now. Okay, continue to dirisha. That on the Kasawurge, same John Wiki said the Chiksharwage, same John Wiki said the Chiksharwage, and the Kinsons of Kurim Shevina, Dina shed Sungdan Chevina, and Tandam Chanju Samson, and Rakunjo Chanju Samsung Warwage. Koran condition the dirisha. And Tandan Chanju Sam Marking and Kunjo Chanju Sam Kekwa, the Mundu Reverse Arwage, Kunjo Chanju Sam Ke, and it Tandam Chanju Sam Keku Reverse, Kundu Sud, Dide Mare Caressa.
Oh no, to the game, Tonto Chanju Sim, any good have some Jules Jengishe. No, sir. You can't go to Chanju Sim, Tonto Chanju's building, it never came, what is?
No, sir. The Geshe-la's answer is that, here the question is, is the conventional enlightenment, I took it as conventional bodhicitta, a requisite for the ultimate enlightenment or ultimate bodhicitta? The Geshe-la's explanation or answer is that, not necessarily. The order is not fixed. The reason why, it depends upon individual mental faculty and capacities. Those with sharp faculties, it is believed that they may cultivate ultimate enlightenment or bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment or awakened mind first, and then they go into cultivating conventional bodhicitta. For others, they may cultivate a conventional mind of enlightenment first, and then they move on to cultivating ultimate mind of enlightenment. So it depends upon individual case basis. The order is not fixed, In other words, the conventional bodhicitta development is not a prerequisite for developing ultimate bodhicitta.